Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is our monthly meeting, the El Dorado Hills Community Council, held this day, Monday, August the 7th. And I want to welcome everyone, both online via Zoom and present here in the conference room. So with that, I would like to give recognition to have our leadership team just kind of very briefly describe what their role is on the community council. So we'll start over here with Kathi because she's going to be our guest speaker today. So.
Bob Williams, District 2 representative.
Yep, Mike Lowenthal, I chair the Public Safety Committee.
Cindy Hunt, Supervisor Heidel's assistant, and I do the community information and outreach for the council.
John Heidel, District 1 Supervisor.
John Davey, El Dorado Hills APAC. We are volunteer residents at review proposed development projects in El Dorado Hills.
Lawrence Miyamoto, Youth Commission Co-Chair and Student Body President at Oak Ridge, and I'm just here to voice the opinions of youth.
Good. And Brandon Reinhardt, is Brandon up?
Yes, there he is.
Brandon, welcome.
Let me see. Me? Oh, there he is.
I think we can hear you, Brandon, so go ahead.
Hi, I'm Brandon. I'm the new planning commissioner for District 1. Nice to meet you all in person or on video. I'm in
Very
Southern
good.
California for work today, so apologies I couldn't be there.
No worries. I'm glad you were able to join us via Zoom, so thank you, Brandon.
Yeah.
With that, we also want to recognize District 1 commissioners and committee members who may be present. So, Raylene, would you like to tell us what your role is? Oh, do you have a microphone? Can we give you one? It just, otherwise people on Zoom can't hear you, so.
I'm Raylene Nunn. I'm District 1. Outreach within the county. We just did National Night Out for El Dorado Hills last Friday, and it was quite exciting.
Very good. So maybe we'll get some time to report on that so we get later in the meeting. So I don't see any other committee members or commissioners here. Is there anybody online? Wendy May.
Yes.
Okay, Wendy, we see you. Can you go ahead and tell us what your role is in supporting the county?
Yes, thank you Supervisor Heidel, Cindy, and fellow commissioners. This is Wendy May here, your Tax Assessor Appeals Board Director. Here to serve and grateful for the opportunity to do so.
Thank you. All right, with that, we're going to move on to adoption of the regular meeting agenda. Does anyone on the leadership team have any proposed changes to tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll accept the agenda as presented, as adopted. So we'll move on to item 3, public comment. This is the period within the meeting. We would encourage anyone from the public who would like to share with the leadership team something, whether it's a comment, a question, those kinds of things. We allow 3 minutes for each of the speakers, but with some latitude to go over if it's a really important subject. So with that, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? We need to make sure you have a microphone or come forward to the podium. So anyone present in the conference room would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, do we have any hand raised?
No hands up.
Okay, well, people are responding like it's 102 degrees outside, so all right. Yeah, you know, just imagine that, right? So we'll move on to item 4. Our guest speaker this evening is Kathi Guerrero, and she's going to be talking to us about her activities with First 5, and in particular, the El Dorado County Community Hubs, which are services that are provided through our libraries. And we also have mobile services that go out to the libraries. So Kathy's going to cover all of that. And then we can have some Q&A following the presentation. So.
I need to check with my mic monitor.
Yes.
Okay.
Is this
Green
good?
light on, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Good job.
He has a dual role in this commission. One is to make sure my mic is always turned on.
Good.
So thank you for the introduction. I am Kathi Guerrero, and I am the director for First 5 El Dorado Children and Families Commission. And, you know, I think I should probably start there because I was going to start at Community Hubs, but many of you don't know what First 5 is. And it is your tobacco tax dollars at work in the community. So back in 1998, some of you may remember Rob Reiner, Meathead, from All in the Family, who started an initiative here in California to make sure that our kids had the best start. And so the proposition was passed in 1998, not by El Dorado County, but across the state, to take 50 cents on every pack of cigarettes and give it back to the communities. So in El Dorado County, we are given back our share based on the number of births that we have in our county. When we were first started in 2000, that was our first allocation, we got nearly $1.7 million. And due to, it's a declining revenue source because we want people to stop smoking, right? And we want to be able to have healthy communities. And actually witnessed at our proposition, was it 31 or 39 in the fall, that also tax flavored, it's a flavor ban. Our revenues are decreasing. So the most recent projection from the Department of Finance is that next year we'll dip under $800,000 a year. So our revenues are going down significantly. However, we are doing our best to leverage the good that we have. And so our objective is to get kids ready for school. The money is targeted towards children and families who are expecting up through the age of 5. And we are there to help them get ready for school by improving their health, making families strong, and by, what's the other one? Strong families, healthy children, and child development, improved child development, and systems change. So those together, we look to leverage our money knowing that we're a declining revenue source, and we created the concepts of hubs back in 2014. So Cindy, if we can go to the first slide. No, next one, I'm sorry.
Oh.
We'll have to get our code down. So when we talk about what are hubs, we've been talking about community hubs, like I said, for almost a decade now. We're in 2023. We've been talking about community hubs. And the concept was to leverage First Five investment with other communities members in order to grow the dollars that we have, in order to give this best start to children and families in the community. And when we first started, it really was targeted at families with children 0 to 5, but by leveraging other funding sources that already existed in the community, we were able to grow that from 0, or birth to death, I guess we can call it, cradle to rocker. And so that's the cool thing about it. So not only are we contributing funds, we're using monies from public health, we're using money from the county government, we're using money from the County Office of Education, and we're basically creating family resource centers in our libraries. The concept is use existing public buildings and expand the reach of services in the community. And I should tell you that if you guys haven't already heard, I'm a girl from Georgetown. And we grew up there and had 4 generations on the Hill. And what I know about Georgetown is that if you want access to services, you have to drive to Placerville, or you take the grade into Auburn. And for me personally, this was a great way to conceptualize having services. So the library in Georgetown becomes their hub for services in the community. And the concept is to take the services that county government provides and co-locate them in the community through our libraries or through our partners in order to increase access to services. And the concept is that if families or community members have access to services earlier, then you'll hit prevention and early intervention services, and you won't have crisis at the end. So that's really the concept. So the hubs are the libraries. We've reimagined them to place navigators. Jacqueline's here with me. You'll hear a little bit about that later. So each one of your libraries, which is located in each one of your supervisorial and education districts, have navigators, at least 2, and in some 3. And their job is to connect folks with services. It's to walk with them in services. So if you are unsure, we've had many families who come in and are unsure about their children's needs, special needs, or there are older folks who are looking to learn more about their medical insurance or to enroll in CalFresh or other county services. Our navigators are there to help find the solutions and walk with them. They provide individualized support, so it's not a blanket support. They will sit down, talk to you. We do what's called a social determinants of health screen, meaning that we go through and make sure your basic needs are met, and from that, we're able to better support the work that you're doing. So then what is First Five's role in it? On the next slide, Cindy, it's the nexus between what First Five does and what the hubs do. We're required to create a system for little kids, and in actually most counties, all counties in the state, little kids don't have a system unless they're already in harm. We have child protective services, and county government, we have child protective services, and we have special education, but we don't necessarily have a system that says, hey, our kids are doing great, and we should check in on them. So First Five is here to create a system where we can start looking at prevention services earlier and get upstream on the issues. So since 2016, we've actually put in $4.5 million into our community hubs. And that we have engaged nearly over 13,000 kids, 0 to 5, and 12,000 primary caregivers in the last 6 years. And what we found is that nearly 1 in 4 or 25% of the families with little kids actually visit the library on a regular basis. And that's a cool thing. When you move into El Dorado County, you know where to go to find other parents with little kids. On the next slide, this is some of the work that Jacqueline and her, oh, I forgot that one. What can I find at my hub? Sorry. When you come in, not only do we have navigators, we've actually expanded the services. And through COVID, what we learned is families are really struggling with basic needs. Even in El Dorado Hills, we have drive-through distributions for diapers because folks are having a hard time making ends meet, and diapers are expensive, so are formula. We have food resources. I know there's a food giveaway at the bank, or at one of the churches here. Which church is it? Hills Church, drive-through distribution for food. And what we've done is adapted that in many of our library hubs. So for example, the Georgetown Library actually has a food closet now because the demand had become so big through the winter storms and folks couldn't get off the hill that they created a food bank basically in their library. And of course, there's a regular library services, but what's really important, I think, is that it's a bank of computers and Wi-Fi access, which we don't always have. And it's a super strong network. And it's a place where, again, someone can walk in, use the computer service, have access to Wi-Fi, and access information or complete forms that you can't do on your phone. So it's a great resource in the community. And on the next slide, we can show you a little bit. I grabbed some screenshots from our social media. If you're not following us, it's EDC Community Hub 1, which all of you should have on Instagram and Facebook. And you can get a feel for what types of services that we have. And so what I've given you is just a kind of a sprinkling of what's available right now. There are grandparent groups. There are groups for children who have special needs. Foster parent support groups. And most recently, there was a psychiatrist who came and spoke about teens and their phones and how to grab their attention. That's a collaborative effort with our community hubs. The first one that I want to point out on there is we do have community advisories. So here's a call out, and if any of you are interested in joining our advisory, we think it's important that we don't design services in a vacuum. And so we want to invite the community's voice into the services that you receive. So the community advisory was launched this last spring with Jacqueline and Missy, who are our two navigators here. And we're inviting folks to come join us to identify and develop responses to the types of issues that we're seeing in El Dorado County. And in Hub 1, the issue that the community advisory is tackling is behavioral health. And so this group is going to get together and talk about what's happening, where are the priorities, and then talk about community-based solutions that they can lift up not only to the commission, but to the county and how we can address them. So if anyone is interested in joining that advisory, please connect with Jacqueline at the end of the meeting. I also wanted to share, this is new, the look is new and hot off the press. We do have a rack card, is what we call them. It's like a big business card. Missy and Jacqueline's phone numbers are on the back, so if you don't have the opportunity to connect with them, this is your rack card for Hub 1. And then we also have a brochure of services, and so you can have those right here. We just did a rebrand. We're getting ready to launch it, so it's a new look for us, and we're pretty excited about it. So let's talk about what we're doing and how far we've gotten. So on the next slide, you can see we did a mid-year report. And I need to be fair, because we're the funder of Families with Children 0 to 5, we cannot require everybody to give us data because it's a heavy lift. So we primarily report on families with children 0 to 5, although we do collect client contact information and sibling information. We did a mid-year report that shows what our navigational services look like, what types of services they have, and we're in the process of breaking that down for the annual report. I don't have the data for Hub 1 in the mid-year report because the numbers are too small to be significant. We will have that in the next month, and I can send it all to you when we get that report completed. So on the next slide, you'll see the population served. And what we've done is try to create a summary about who's walking in the door. When Hubs really started in the beginning, we met a lot of our library folks who were pretty resilient and pretty highly educated. And we actually have a goal of reaching to those community members that are furthest from services and are marginalized by the system. And so what you can see here is that we're starting to make a greater impact. So we can see that we're serving more folks that are struggling on their income, struggling to have food, did not have shelter. Our shelter numbers are about consistent. I think we have 1 in 10 in the county that are unsheltered. and we're at 7% that we're reaching. So we're starting to really make traction there. Transportation is always an issue. We're talking to folks about how they get around and how they can get connected to services. You can find them, but you got to get there too. Health insurance, health insurance rates are pretty good in this county for the most part. Folks are enrolled, especially for kids. Most kids, I think it's about 96% of the kids under the age of 5 are enrolled in a health plan, which we think is good so that they can get early preventive care. So in addition to the population served, we're also reaching out in our service types. And on the next slide, you can see what types of services folks are asking for. From a navigator's perspective, there's 4 different types of services that someone can provide. Someone can walk in and receive a gift card or diapers or formula, and that's a check. Hey, we greeted you, we were able to provide a service. The second part is that they share a resource, a website. Where can I get childcare? Let's go to Choices for Children. Where can I reach the Commission on Aging so they can connect folks up? The third one is that we actually sit down and help somebody. This is a lot of application completion, trying to do a Medi-Cal application or trying to apply for CalFresh, or even job applications, EDD work. It's sitting down and figuring out what those questions mean and doing it on a computer so that folks can actually complete and submit the work. And then lastly, there's the referral system. And we are working on trying to lift up an electronic referral system called Unitas, which is an online system. Actually, the Commission on Aging is considering it as well. It's an online referral system where you can hit multiple referrals with the push of a button, and it is closed loop. You are able to see not only did you send it out, did folks get access to the services they need? Oftentimes when we do referrals, we send them out, but we don't know whether or not anybody ever was connected with what they wanted. So this is our opportunity to explore what an electronic referral system might look like. And on the bottom of the slide, you can see the types of things that folks need the most. And really, it is a lot of it's basic need, and it's really stemmed from COVID and is creeping along, to be honest. And then the question becomes on the next slide, how happy are folks with services? You can provide them, but if they don't like them, they're no good. Keeping in mind, these are not a large number of respondents. It's a mid-year for our client satisfaction survey, but they were either very satisfied or satisfied with the services they're receiving. And it's good for us to know whether or not we're engaging folks in the way that they can listen. I think that probably on the next slide, and we'll hope that this works, I was kind of rattling through a little bit quickly because I think our parents tell the best story. So this is about a 5-minute video. These are 2 families that have received hub services who want to share their story of what it was like to connect with the hub. So Cindy, I hope that it'll work. Does it need a control click? So while Cindy's looking, I'll tell you that there are 2 families in the video. One is 3 generations. That's it, you can see it. Perfect.
Bueno, yo conocí a Jesús hace mucho tiempo, pero solo lo conocía cuando estaba yendo a mi vecindad.
She said that she's known Jesus for a really long time, kind of when she was coming into the library.
You're going to share the screen. Yep.
Thank you guys, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Time of the pandemic during COVID, and that's when he would go into the community where we live, which is primarily Hispanics, and he would help a lot with the food drive. And during that time there was also COVID, so all the kids were going to school, and it was primarily like the kids staying at home, and a lot of parents did not know what to do because we worked and we were also not used to educating our own kids, so we didn't really know what to do. So he would bring activities for the kids to do, like to help them learn, like with the library, going in and like teaching them other things. And he also taught them a lot about different resources that are in the community that they did not know about that they could use, and that were also very helpful. Okay, she feels like it's helped a lot because you have a different resource other than like someone that's more knowledgeable in things that we may not know about regarding like things in the community or how to help children, because he is with like the education program. So it's another resource, like a very valuable resource. He's a very valuable resource. So I'm a single parent, and when Jesus would come over, I actually learned a lot about the different things that are available in the community, especially for like single moms and things like that. And also, he helped out a lot of Hispanics in our community, right? And a lot of the Hispanics in there solely speak Spanish. So because they only speak Spanish, a lot of times it's really uncomfortable for them to go out and ask for help in the community because they feel like they either can't communicate properly with someone. And with them, they were able to like really feel like they were being heard and their all problems were really being understood because he was able to communicate with them so easily.
We fled 10 years, almost 10 years of abuse, domestic violence in every way, shape, and form. And when we fled, it was to escape for our lives. So we came with just a backpack. We didn't know anybody up here. I just sent my friend a message and I said, do you have a domestic violence shelter? So I went to the center and the shelter was full and they gave me a flyer for the hub and they said, call the hub, see what resources you can find there. So the thing of being able to come here to the library, my child can play, and at the same time she and I can chat was a huge thing for me because we came just prior to shutdown. We didn't get that time, so it was about 3 months that we were able to come here to the library and be able to do that. And that was really big because my daughter didn't feel like, oh, we have to go to the office and we have to be there. It was like, okay, it's here, it's at the library, you're playing, we're all good. And that was a huge thing because she put as much importance in my child's life than as she did on mine. Right now, in school, I'm getting a degree. I'm going into social work so that I can help others like me, so that my daughter doesn't walk in the same footsteps I did, my mom did, my grandmother did, so that I can be able to do social work and say to people, you can do this. Because it's not always like that. A lot of people have addictions or they have things, and there's plenty of resources, but there's not resources for domestic violence. Not without this, we would probably be living on the streets or gone back and got ourselves killed. It really, if people don't understand how something so simple, and think, oh, it's a hub, it's just something that does diapers, they don't realize the help that changes lives. I wrote a note, I don't even know, maybe a year and a half in, about how amazing this program was before I even met you guys. It was so life-changing, and it was one of the only things I found. You know, it's a small county, it's a very extended county, and people say, oh, you gotta go to SEC, oh, you gotta go here, you gotta go there. And I'm like, but I'm here, and, you know, no car, no transportation, no housing, no anything. I've worked since I was 12. I've never had to depend on anybody. I give and give and give and give, and that was my whole life, was giving and helping others. And I really believe that the hub gives a hand up and not a hand out. And that's what changes lives. It doesn't change lives to make somebody dependent on you and that you can't walk with them. You have to do a 50-50. Bueno, yo conocí a Jesús hace mucho tiempo.
Thank you guys for allowing us to share that with you. It's, first of all, I want to tell you, I didn't load the deck, like we didn't tell them anything. So it's all like their personal experience. And I think one of the great takeaways for me, especially from someone from Georgetown, is there's a lot of multi-generational families who've been here for a really long time, and we haven't had the opportunity to go and support and walk with them the way that we could. And I love it when she says it's a hand up, not a hand out. And that's the objective. You build resiliency by working with folks and showing them how to navigate circumstances and to help walk with them to a future that they choose for. So what's next with hubs, right? We've been the leader for collective impact. That means we are the backbone organization in bringing folks together in this change. And we are funding through the end, it's June 30th, 2025. Because of our revenue decreases, we are not likely to be in a position where we can continue funding at the level that we have. And we're looking to our partners to try and explore how we can take this wonderful system and integrate it into existing services across the county. How could we sustain that over time? And we had some ideas about it and how we could do it. So on the next slide, Cindy. We'll be working in the next 2 years to start formalizing libraries as community service hubs so that we can talk about the organizational structures and the strategic plan. Perhaps it could be part of the county strategic plan. Perhaps we could deploy folks not in the offices at Brew Road, but move them out into the libraries and have office hours where they can connect. And that's part of reorganizing existing resources, peoples and buildings. I think that it would be great to be able to bring the folks who do the work face-to-face with the folks who are needing it. We can leverage existing prevention and early intervention strategies across departments. There are plenty of county departments who have existing strategies and small buckets of money. We've experimented with that a little bit through our hubs. There's child abuse prevention dollars, and they're like 20,000 here and there, and we cobble them all together to 60,000 and bring them in. I think there are other opportunities with very small amounts of dollars that we could wrap in and build the supports around. And then looking at funding streams, which are a little bit new, and I know I have the acronyms on there, but it's called the Children Youth Behavioral Health Initiative. Those are funding that is being used in our wellness centers at the high school. That's an opportunity. Mental Health Services Act, or MHSA, are prevention dollars for behavioral health in our community. There's an opportunity through prevention, well, if that doesn't get reorganized into housing under the current governor's current plan, but there's funding available in there as well for prevention and early intervention. And you know what, I'm just saying, cannabis is, I'm a syntax, tobacco is a syntax, cannabis is a syntax, why not? There's an opportunity, should the cannabis program start coming in, that we could reinvest that into our families who need the help the most. So we'll be working on that in the next 2 years, and as a team, continuing to figure out how we can take what we already have and make it different and more available for our families to be successful and to reduce crisis, help folks up front. So have any questions for myself or Jacqueline? We're happy to answer them.
Let's start with the leadership team. Anyone?
See, following the rules. Kathi, I was curious. So, I know it's 5 districts, there's 5 hubs, 5 libraries. So in terms of services, is it strictly district driven? Because we have a lot of folks in El Dorado Hills that are in District 2, but they're close to the District 1, the library here in El Dorado Hills. Same thing with people maybe on the north side of Green Valley Road, that they're closer to the library here than they are to, say, Georgetown or to Cameron Park. How does that work? Is it just services are there?
Services are there. I love supervisorial districts for the opportunity it gives our supervisors to know what's happening in their community. I think it's a great geographic structure for that. Service-wise in our county, not so good.
Yeah.
So basically you can walk into any hub. You don't, in Rescue, the hub is primarily located in Georgetown. Rescue's part of District 4. Those folks come to Cameron Park.
Yeah.
In El Dorado Hills, they play between, actually there's a group that probably go between Cameron Park and El Dorado Hills on a pretty regular basis. However, I can also tell you that South County did their very first hub down at Pioneer Park last month. So Hub 2, they are starting to do one day a month down there and organize as a hub, an extension of the hub based upon the demand of the community. Okay. So there was a food event, there were other resources, and they're starting to advertise it. I think Pollock Pines is another one of those because it cuts up 3 different ways. It's technically part of South Lake Tahoe. But that's another opportunity where we bring resources in regardless of the boundaries. It's really about an organizational structure to make you think differently, but nobody's turned away.
Yeah, I was just curious because, geographically we're so spread out, and when you're close to one hub versus, where your district is, if there was any impact there. So I'm certain that we can identify in data later, well, these are residents from this district, but they're getting service here, and it's, information's good. So.
And that's actually where we're going. When we redesigned to the navigation system, we did it in the middle of COVID because we were having people go in, and it was a face-to-face engagement program at the time. And so when we redesigned, we had to redesign our data at the same time. So we're about 1.5 years into our data. I'm really excited about what's coming in this next year because we'll be able to see the district of residence or community of residence versus the community of services. And then we're also going to get better detail about what types of services in each hub. So we'll be able to see if in Hub 1, what are the primary things folks are coming in, then that information goes to the community advisory to say, hey, here's what's a big need and how can they tackle it. So yes, data was, and actually that's the reason why I'll speak for myself. I chose the supervisorial districts as the organizing tool because the data is only relevant if you have a body to reflect it to. And so we figured that between the Board of Education and the Board of Supervisors, those are the folks who are going to be most concerned about the communities at that level.
Awesome, thanks.
Us on leadership team.
No, just one question. I saw one of the slides referenced, I think it was 1,064 people served. And then you broke it down, some wanted food, some wanted other types of services. Was that just in the hub here locally, or was that globally across the county?
Countywide in the first 6 months.
In the first 6 months, so
Yeah.
about 2,000.
Yeah, the numbers actually, we just talked about the data the other day. I believe it was somewhere in the area at 6-month report, about 800 clients served, and I believe it's up to 1,800 by the end of the year. So we'll have much better data.
Nice.
Kathy, I think this is a very impressive.
Thank you. I think that the best partnership is our navigators getting to know the community agencies that they're with, and then that it's a referral relationship. And maybe Jacqueline can talk a little bit more about that. So how do you get to know people and reach out? How do you work with the nonprofits?
I work primarily with Hills Church because they have the food distribution. And so I was able to connect with them, and now I'm there twice a month for their food distributions. And I set up a little hub table, and I've got all the information and resources. So as people are coming in for the food distribution, they can also stop by and chat with me, and I can do navigation and help them with stuff. So that's been a really good one. There are a couple other churches I'd like to connect with. I've been able to connect with some of our mental health folks in our community. Dr. Sinceri was the one who did our mental health event. We have a newer clinic here in El Dorado Hills, Early Days Autism Center, and I've been able to connect with them as well. Those are the ones off the top of my head, but just doing outreach. I work a lot with the preschools and then our schools in the area. Actually, another thing I just did last week was to connect with one of our homeschools. So Clarksville Charter School is here in El Dorado Hills, and I went to they called it a planner pickup, and they did theirs in Placerville. So I hopped over there and took resources, and as families came to pick up their planners and meet their homeschool teachers, I was there with resources and information for them, which was super great because I feel like a lot of our families get information from, one, the library, or two, from their schools, mostly from their schools probably, right? So as I'm also a homeschool parent, one of my 3 kids are doing the homeschool, so that's another reason why I was there. But when I chatted with their Title I specialist, I noticed that they didn't have hubs on their website and their list of resources. So I was really able to connect with them, and even though I had a meeting with her previously, I was able to then go and meet the families and the teachers and their staff, and to be able to give those resources. And they were super happy to have me, and it was able to just meet the families and let them know what's available, because if it's not on their website or their teachers don't know about it, how else are they going to hear about it? So that was really exciting to go and meet with them as well. So.
Thank you, Jacqueline. And I'll give you 2 other examples. In South County, our navigators started reaching out to the different community resource agencies in order to do the Hub 2 event. And so it's picking up the phone and saying, hey, we have an event. We'd like you all to be there. How can we get together and make it happen? So in that case, there was a contact with the El Dorado Food Bank. There was contact with WIC and CalFresh. And so it's building those personal relationships. And I think that that's what's key about the hubs. I mean, you could have a library where someone walks in, but it's the personal relationship. When you heard our families talk, they say, I know Jesus. I know so-and-so. So I think that having someone, a face and a name and a trusted partner, like on the back of the rack card, they know who to go see. It's relationship building one by one. It's really it. The other interesting partnership we're building with the Commission on Aging, and this is an evolving community, is the Commission on Aging, Marshall and Chantel, have approached us and said, hey, we want the seniors to be more active in hubs. How can we? So this is an example of them coming to us. So they came to us and said, how can we be involved? We're going to pilot a project up in Hub 4. Their community advisory is concerned about their seniors. And so they're going to bring in Jordan from Senior Services and the Commission on Aging to be on their community advisory and start looking at what's happening with seniors in there. So it's really, it can be driven by the individual, it can be driven by the topic, or it can be driven by our parents who bring the resources to us. It's funny, hubs are not static. So they end up changing. I don't know if I give you way too much information or not. Mm. Yeah. That'd be great. And then we can take the brochure or grab my email off of the slide and let's talk about how they can get involved. I mean, there's different ways. It can be at the community advisory level, or if you have a great idea, send it my way and we'll make it happen. Thank you.
Kathy, I'm gonna come to the audience real quick. Two things. I recently had a discussion with one of our Health and Human Services staff members who was asking about, we understand where food deserts may exist in El Dorado County, and recognizing the hub is trying to serve that, recognizing the food bank as a resource.
Mhm.
Are there food deserts that you're aware of that haven't been addressed? Because I'm trying to figure out how big that particular question might be. Scope.
Interesting you should ask. That's a conversation that's bubbling up across the county. I did go to Valley Vision. They did food insecurity maps back in 2021. It was just on the beginning of COVID. And those food maps will indicate where at that time there are deserts, but they have not updated those food maps. She did give me a link to where the data was drawn from, and I can send it to you. It's a tricky conversation, and I don't want to sidetrack it, but it's a tricky conversation because I don't think that we have a mapping here that we own locally.
Okay.
I don't know that we have a collaborative plan to address it. We are kind of driven by our food delivery systems right now, which are 2 food banks. And the 2 food banks have 2 different types of delivery systems.
Yep.
And so I think there's a tremendous opportunity to map how those 2 systems would look together so that our community would be aware of where the food resources are. And we could deploy them to the neighborhoods who need it the most. Right now, we're doing drive-through distributions with the Placer Food Bank. Those distributions are showing us in the areas of Georgetown, Pollock Pines, Cameron Park, and Placerville, that within a 2-hour time period, we're getting anywhere from, in some cases, it's 200, but up in Pollock Pines and even in Placerville, it can be 250 to 300 individuals in a 2-hour time period that drive by. So food insecurity is kind of no joke.
Yeah.
And I think it would be, good for the community for us to be upstream on this, map it out, and have a conversation about how we can be efficient with those resources.
Very good. The second question, you kind of intrigued me when we talked about the Unitas application and stuff, because the county's using the 211 system and we never get any feedback. Is anybody using it? Is it of any help? And so I guess just keep us informed as you experiment with that. If it really is effective, maybe we need to look at a different way to put in place the county referral system, because again, without any feedback, we're paying for services and we keep asking, but what are we getting out of it? We don't know.
That's also a complicated question.
Yeah.
So there's a few levels. 211 is a service that's here. I understand that the county pays for that service. What I understand is that it's not being as updated or it's not as robust as it could be. So often it's a self-navigated, here's your referral, go do it. So it's a one-way referral. The referral data systems are emerging probably in the last 5 years. And these data systems are, as I said, you punch in one, you have a family you're working with, and they need behavioral health, food, and whatever else. You push one button, it goes out, and it comes back to you. It's a great concept, but what's happened through, you're all aware that the Medi-Cal or Medicare changes with CalAIM are happening. So our public health insurance is going to change. Well, each one of them are required to have this electronic referral system. Now what's happening is that each one of the health plan providers has chosen a different system. So whereas it was a great idea to have one, which we rolled out with 3 years ago, hoping everybody would like get on it and get ahead of it.
Yeah.
We now have, I think there's 3 different systems, Apricot, Unitas, and Find Info. And they're competing. And the problem with it is that if you're a county department, which one do you choose?
Okay.
And so I think that it's a great discussion, again, for our county departments to say, hey, let's choose one. And let's go all in, because none of the nonprofits has stepped back and said, if the hospital's on it and county government's not on it, then what's the point of us joining it? So I think it's, if we had an intentional effort around it, I think it'd be an amazing tool. I've seen, and the data you would get from it is amazing. You'd know exactly what the needs were and whether or not folks had services, and you'd also know where the gaps in services are with that tool.
Thank you for that. So I'll follow up with you. Matt, you had a comment or question?
I'm Pat Chris. I'm a longtime resident here. I'm just curious, what is your financial arrangement with the libraries? Because they're tax-based. And from what I understand, the tax is not adequate to provide the services that most libraries want to provide. So how do you negotiate for space and time? And since they all have different hours of operation, how do you advertise or publicize your hours of operation? And how do you negotiate with the libraries for time and space available?
That is an excellent question. Excellent question. So as you said, each one of our libraries have local tax bases, and each one of our libraries has hours of operation. Our hours of operations are whatever the library has. So we basically leverage the existing space. The things that we pay for in our contracts with the library is we pay for 50% of staff. So we're
Staff?
saving money. Staff, only our navigational staff. So we are paying for navigational staff. We are not, we actually are not allowed by law to supplant public funding. So I can't go pay for the library's operating expenses or I can't pay for those things. I pay for half of the navigators in each one of the hubs, and county government picks up the community health, 3 community health workers. But these are only staffing. We do not, if the library isn't open, we won't have hubs.
So there's no after-hours services.
We do not have the ability to pay for that through our hub system.
And some of the libraries don't have adequate funding even to buy books.
Agreed.
So where's the money going to come from for you to continue to use the facilities when they're not able to even staff their own facilities?
I'll be honest, I hope that us turning libraries have always been resource centers. This is just in a different way. My hope is that the community will see the libraries as such a valuable resource that they will continue to support them and grow them to meet their community need. And if one of our libraries is being responsive to the community it serves, that's a good investment for you. That's
Because
my hope.
nobody can afford to rent rooms at the community services district or the school districts because they're too expensive. So the library is really the only available place, and there's a great deal of competition
I
for the
agree.
space available.
I agree. I have to tell you, I think that the libraries are one of the best and most overlooked resource in our community. They have some of the highest educated folks in our community. It's a great resource. It is a community-built building. I think that building should be available to reflect whatever the community needs. And I think if we jointly invest in it, if we're creative about that money, we can expand it. And that's what I think the goal of Hubs is let's plant the seed and see what we can do collaboratively.
Questions? Yeah, Margaret.
Thank you. First of all, I just really enjoyed your presentation. I was a commissioner on the first 5 commission when it first started on a state level. So it's really satisfying. My name is Margaret Fortune. It's really satisfying to see how.
Hopefully I did okay.
You did wonderfully. It's really satisfying to see how things have blossomed after these many years. One of the things that you mentioned, Kathi, was that you do collaboration with preschool. And while you just touched on that, I'm really curious about the demand for preschool in the county and El Dorado Hills, and if we're experiencing some of the same childcare shortages that other counties are and around the state and the country.
I can tell you globally, I probably wouldn't have Jacqueline might know a little bit better. I can tell you in my work with the local child care planning council, that we do not have the capacity to meet the needs of kids at the price that families can afford to pay. That's always a struggle. We had a lot of closures during COVID, and so we've not necessarily rebounded from the closures yet. I do not have numbers for you. However, I'd be more than happy to get that information from you from the local Child Care Planning Council.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And Jacqueline, did you have anything to add on that, or?
Have those TK programs put childcare providers out of business, or is it really COVID that caused those doors to shut?
I'll take that. COVID started it. Yeah, COVID, for most of the home-based providers, COVID started it. And then TK, so for those of you who don't know, when you're doing childcare, there's high demand for infant care. The rules are you can only have a very small group of kids in one, and it's very expensive, so it's very hard to find infant childcare in the county. And so a lot of folks go into preschool as a bread and butter because you can get a lot more class sizes, you can balance your budget on them. But TK pulls your 4-year-olds out of that budget, and you have to change up the way that you do business. I think that folks are growing through it, but the TK programs vary versus all day versus half day, like Jacqueline's saying. So then you have to think about, how am I going to wrap my child care program? How am I going to be an after-school care program for 4-year-olds? So I think they'll make it through. I think it's a growth set, but it definitely has initially hurt a lot of businesses, yeah.
Well, congratulations on all your great work.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I'll just add on behalf of Supervisor Turnbull, we've had some local issues too relative to daycare facilities shutting down within our business park. And it's a case where facilities were built originally that didn't meet standards for operation with kids in them. And the fire department is going around and looking at, the safety aspect of these things and what needs to happen. And the net result is a lot of the owners of the property don't want to invest in what it would take. And so it's easier for them to turn over tenants than it is to put in an investment to increase the fire safety aspects of a given building. And so we've seen a couple of daycare centers. I know that the chief has been involved with it. We've all been trying to find solutions for that, but there aren't any. That's the difficulty. We have to be compliant with codes. And when you have a property owner that doesn't want to spend a lot of money to upgrade a facility because they can lease it for a different use or rent it for a different use and still increase their rates, they're making their return on investment. So they're not vested in trying to make sure that daycare facilities stay open. And that's big part of the discussion. How do we get beyond that? And I think over time that'll self-adjust a little bit. But right now there's a significant shortage in El Dorado Hills for those kinds of services. I hear it every day.
I wasn't going to throw anybody under the
No,
bus.
no,
so I
it's
appreciate
not
you
under the
doing
bus.
it.
It's we're all trying to do the right things. It's just not easy.
It's true, and I had heard about them. I'm glad that you said it.
Yeah. Oh, any other questions or comments from anyone in the conference room here? All right, so I'm not seeing any hands raised online, unless you knew of somebody that wanted to speak to one of these. So again, thank you very much, both of you, Jacqueline and Kathi, for the presentation. Outstanding job. I'm just hopeful that between the county and other nonprofits and other things, we can find the resources to keep the hubs fully staffed and moving, because we've made such a significant inroad into getting the connection with the community. That's tough to get.
It is.
Trust, right?
Yeah.
Will people trust you when they come in and want to share with you what their issues are? So we've gotten to that point. But as you mentioned, with the tobacco money being the primary funding and all of the things that have happened to minimize tobacco use, flavored tobaccos and everything else, that funding stream is drying up. So like you, I hope the cannabis situation changes a little bit. I would hope the state would reconsider some of their fees that go into that.
Yeah.
And provide more opportunity for local monies to be collected to serve things like our hubs.
Well, and I guess I shouldn't leave without acknowledging the Board of Supervisors at their June 13th meeting, where there was a motion made and supported by all 5 supervisors that directs the CAO to identify stable funding for hubs and to identify funding for enhanced hubs for areas such as South County and Pollock Pines, and that recommendation is supposed to come back to the board at their April budget meeting. So that's monumental in and of itself. So I sincerely appreciate the Board of Supervisors, and it's your system. So hopeful to help develop it to make our county the gold standard in public service, because that's the goal.
Absolutely. And so this is a classic situation where grant monies are the typical one, right? You get grant monies for a 3-year program, you get it up and running, it's going real well, and then the grant monies disappear. And then it's on the county or some other agency to try to provide the ongoing sustainability funding. And sometimes those things just don't happen. So somehow working with the state, we've got to get to a better situation for really the sustainability over a longer period of time. Start some good programs, but keep them funded at some level with state monies that can be augmented, but not taken over totally as a level of effort activity at the county. Those things just are hard to do for El Dorado County at least. So
I don't know. I'll go with you. We'll dice and slice. And
there you
get
go.
into those
Let's go.
community resources. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Very good. Excellent with that. So moving on then, let's go to supervisor communications, and he's going to go pretty quick. Nothing new that we can report yet on Central El Dorado specific plan. My understanding is that the meetings to talk about potential changes to the development agreement are basically subsided and are not going on at this point. But in talking with planning, we are looking at bringing back a scheduled meeting for the public review and continuation at the Board of Supervisors level sometime before the end of the year. So we've actually picked 3 prospective timeframes to start the first of a series of 2 meetings. That first meeting is kind of floating depending upon how much compliance staff can get from getting all the information they need and fulfilling it, but it would not occur before mid-October. And so we're looking at dates in mid-October, early to mid-November, early to mid-December is the 3 prospective dates. And we've been working with one church in particular that doesn't seem like it's going to be available to us. So we started going and working with other churches to try to make sure that that first meeting could be a public meeting in El Dorado Hills to basically allow people to come and voice their opinion as opposed to the meeting being in Placerville and on Zoom. So the idea would be we'd have one local meeting. We would have the presentations made by both county staff and by the proponent. We would take public comment. We would close public comment, move to a second meeting, which would be at the County Board of Supervisors for a deliberation and decision making. So kind of splitting it up, but there's an effort to try to get all this done before the end of the calendar year. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but all I can tell you is we're planning to the best of our ability and trying to maintain some flexibility in doing that. So the Costco project in EDH, I think most people are aware that that's been had their attack meeting and is proceeding. We're currently working with them at the county level to get them started on their environmental impact reports. It's got to be a full EIR, and hopefully everybody recognizes that. So I know traffic is one of the major considerations. Noise is always a consideration. So all of those elements will be addressed. There was a preliminary analysis, but my read of it would indicate that they probably didn't get as deep into some of those potential mitigations as they should have. So I'm sure APAC is looking at that. I'll let John or somebody comment if they want to at this point, but there will be full public review on this particular project. That's the message. We're proceeding with our strategic planning, and we hope to have a series of meetings completed so that we'll be able to present a public workshop sometime in the September-October timeframe. And you'll see when we get to the end of the meeting, I'm actually proposing being able to share an early version of that at our next community council meeting in September. So hopefully that comes to fruition, but we're maintaining some flexibility there as well. Brandon Reinhardt, Brandon introduced himself, was approved by the Board of Supervisors as our new District 1 Planning Commissioner. I got nothing but positive response to that. And so this is his first community council meeting following his first PC meeting, Planning Commission meeting on the 27th. So we're going to ask Brandon to share with us a little bit later in the evening here what his experience was with that, and obviously keep it brief. And then lastly, the county has been working on a proposed amnesty ordinance to address unpermitted property primarily relative to previous owners and what they bought into with change of ownership and not having anything at the county level that was a public record saying that there were unpermitted improvements made. And now the county is asking for that current property owner to make it whole from the standpoint of getting the permits. for most structures. You can understand if you did a room addition or something significant and it wasn't permitted, how do we know that it was constructed properly? There were no inspections, right? So trying to backtrack all of that, but board decided we didn't have quite enough information yet, so we're getting more public input and then some refinement probably to that draft ordinance, and it'll be coming back to the board at a future date, which I'm not sure what that date is yet, but hopefully within a couple of months here. So those are the items I wanted to share with people of recent events at the county. Any questions or comments on those? Okay, then I think we're ready to move on to supervisor communications. I didn't see any hands raised on Zoom either, so supervisor, we're moving on to number 6, leadership team progress reports. And let's start with our CHP because I see that Officer Andrew Brown is with us. So Officer Brown, it's all yours.
Excellent. Can you hear me?
Yes, good.
Good. All right. Happy to be with you. I'm Officer Brown with the CHP in the Placerville area, so geographically covers El Dorado Hills, and just give a little bit of update of what we're doing and how El Dorado Hills is doing with the rest of the Western Slope. So just a very rough numbers, but El Dorado Hills composes about 30% of the population of the Western Slope of El Dorado County. So in regards to just the Highway Patrol's numbers, we had in the Western Slope about 89 arrests, 13 of which were in El Dorado Hills. So that's a good number. So 15%, only 15% were in El Dorado Hills. Crash investigations from July 1st. Oh, sorry. These numbers are from July 1st to current. So we're going with the third quarter here. So July 1st to current crash investigations, 156 crashes, quite a bit of crashes. It can be expected. It's a busy part of the year. It's the deadliest 100 days on the road between Memorial Day and Labor Day. So we're kind of ending that coming up within the next couple of weeks. 24 of those 156 crashes were in El Dorado Hills, so another 15%. So that's on track. And then 42 DUI arrests from July 1st to current in the Western Slope of El Dorado County by the Highway Patrol, 7 of which were in El Dorado Hills. So that's only 17%. So that is really good numbers. Really happy from what we're seeing in El Dorado Hills. Education enforcement is working pretty well, in my opinion. And so like I mentioned before, this is the fatal 100 days, most fatal 100 days of the year. For teens and for drivers out there on the road. So I want to encourage right now, and especially Supervisor Heidel and those who hear me rant at these meetings. The number one thing that I talk about after the maximum enforcement periods are seatbelt usage. We estimate that about 50% of those who are killed during maximum enforcement periods or during holiday weekends or over the summer could have been saved if they had just been wearing their seatbelt. So seatbelt compliance is extremely high in the state of California. I would not say this is just anecdotal from Officer Brown. I would not say it's that high, as high as the average of the state in El Dorado County. I just want to encourage people, please wear your seatbelts. We're doing we're doing really, really good with seatbelt usage when it comes to crashes so far this year. We've only had 8 fatal crashes this year on the Western Slope of El Dorado County, with 10 persons dying. That is a great thing that we have going on this year. So let's keep it up. Let's drive slow, drive safe, drive sober, and make sure and wear your seatbelts. That's about all I got for my little elevator speech. But if you have any questions for me, let me know.
Questions for Officer Brown? Anyone on the leadership team? Anyone present? Yeah, Tim.
Officer Brown, Tim White. As you know, high school started today, and middle school and junior high school starts later this week. So the Silva Valley Speedway is up and running again, I'm afraid. I had a 8:30 meeting here at the fire department today, and I already observed parents skipping stop signs or doing a very fast California stop. Like, I'll go ahead, I don't see anyone, I'm gonna go ahead, and they slow down to 12 or 15 miles an hour. So any enhanced highway patrol presence over the next week or so, why both high school students drive to the high school, but parents drop off their kids at either the two middle schools or the elementary schools in the area, I think would be very helpful to remind people, hey, if I don't drive correctly, I do stand a chance of a ticket.
Excellent. Yeah, good to know. I'll re-up that. As always, a complaint there. Our senior volunteers make it a big topic or a big task for them to get at least a black and white down there. That's between you and me. That it's just a senior volunteer in some of those cars, but you never know. It could be a tan uniform in some of those cars every once in a while. No, but we are getting out there quite a bit, and I'll let our officers know for the West End to really focus on our schools. That's a good reminder for me.
Anyone else? I don't see anyone with their hand raised in the audience. So thanks again, Officer Brown. Appreciate the update. And let's move on to fire, because I don't think we have anybody from Sheriff's Office, do we? Okay, let's move on to fire.
Okay, again, well, Michael Anthol, Deputy Chief with El Dorado Hills Fire Department. I start with somewhat, I guess, sobering news, sad news, but I'm wearing the sash today. Unfortunately, yesterday there was a helicopter crash down in Southern California in which a CAL FIRE assistant chief, a CAL FIRE captain, and a contract pilot for CAL FIRE were killed on the line of duty in a helicopter accident. So I bring that to your attention. It's been a relatively slower start to fire season. Things have been successful. We've had plenty of fire starts, but fortunately there's a lot of resources available, and we've been successful at stopping the fires. But it is just worth calling out the sacrifice that was made yesterday, and that even in a slow season, there's still plenty of risk out there. But on a happy note, here in El Dorado Hills, we've had lots of small fires, including one just a few minutes ago at the start of the meeting over here at Gillette and Olson. It was about a half acre in the grass. And again, lots of resources, quick response times, and people doing defensible space behind their homes made a difference, definitely in this fire. And so that was nice to see. On a happy note, our fire training center, we have our crews actively out training down in the business park. We're real excited about that. A lot of great trainings going on. We've extended training to the city of Folsom, to our other fire agencies across the county, to the sheriff's department, and it's getting a lot of interest. So really a great facility, and it's a nice asset to have here in El Dorado Hills. So we're appreciative of that and getting a lot of great use out of that. And I know Supervisor Heidel is an original board member here. You know, the decisions were made years ago to give us the funding for that to happen. So very much appreciate that. And then lastly, we're just kind of wrapping up our vegetation management programs for the years. Our inspectors are still out inspecting properties and moving into the abatement phase. I'm a little slower on the abatement this year, just in terms of having to find contractors available to do the abatement, but we're working through that process and getting that mitigated. With that, that's the end of the report.
I'm going to comment on the Cameron Park Medic Unit situation so people have an understanding of how that's.
Yep. So if you're not aware, Cameron Park Community Services District, which services parks and fire, is in a very, very severe financial situation right now. We've been attending their meetings and trying to stay on top of it. Their funding stream is declining and has been for years, and they're at a point now where they've decided to no longer staff Medic 89 in Cameron Park off a country club. That decision was made by their CSD board based on the fact that they were augmenting the ambulance to the tune of almost $200,000 a year out of their budget, just based on the staffing model that they were providing there. So the ambulances in El Dorado County, there's 8 of them. They're operated through a JPA. So each of the fire agencies are part of this JPA, and collectively we operate the ambulances as one system. So what's going to happen Wednesday of this week is there's an RFP process that will come out internally to the other fire agencies, basically asking the question, who can stand up an ambulance to replace Medic 89? I know there's at least 2, if not 3 fire districts willing and ready today to do that. So there will be a solution to ensure there are 8 ambulances on the West Slope. We know that's the bare minimum that we can operate with safely. And so I do expect the solution to that problem. It'll be a different provider than Cameron Park's had in the past, but there will still be an ambulance in the area, close enough to the community of Cameron Park to meet the response time standards. So not good news, but good news in the fact that there are solutions available. And then we are watching the Cameron Park Fire Department deployment model right now, as there's a lot of talks right now of what they will do in the future as far as their sustainability in providing fire services.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because I've had some questions. What's going to happen when we lose our medic unit? We had a situation in Diamond Springs where it went down for a while and had to backfill there.
And one thing I do want to call out to the credit of CAL FIRE as the current provider, They lived through the 7 ambulance model, and to the credit of their employees there, they said, look, we'll keep staffing this ambulance up until the point that another provider is ready to seamlessly start the ambulance. So even though it's impacting them pretty significantly, their employees, they've shown that dedication to the community to continue with a seamless transition. So that's worth calling out, and it's definitely commendable for them.
Continuity, that's important. Yeah. All right, very good. Okay, I think we can move beyond that then. Economic, I'm just going to go through these very quick. Economic development, we're still restructuring, not a lot to report there. We've got a meeting scheduled this month, and hopefully by late September, we'll be able to share with the public what we're doing with respect to that restructuring, what was called CDAC, and probably renaming as well. So let's move on to infrastructure. So Brandon, are you still with us?
Yep, I'm here.
Why don't you just give us a brief summary of what happened at the Planning Commission meeting and anything that might be particularly interesting to El Dorado Hills residents?
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward. The only thing that we talked about was a tentative subdivision map in District 4, taking a 30-acre parcel and subdividing it into 6 5-acre lots, which is allowable. So pretty straightforward, 5-year vote, and the whole thing was probably less than 45 minutes. So that was pretty straightforward. Next meeting on Thursday, we're going to talk about a rezone of a small site off Green Valley. That's District 1 technically, and that will be basically to allow it go from rural residential to low density residential and allow them to have basically two homes on one site.
Very good. And your audio was breaking up a little bit because I realized you're remote and at a distance. So we'll just have to apologize for that for anybody that listens to the
hotel
recording. Yeah. Thank you, Brandon. All right.
Yeah.
Good governance, our charter review report. We're going to look to Tim White to provide an update there since our normal participant is absent tonight. So.
Well, the Charter Review Committee has been meeting since August 11th, 2022. We are starting to wrap up our what the Board of Supervisors asked us to do. Our next meeting is a week from tonight, the 14th at 5 o'clock up at the Board of Supervisors chamber. We are looking at a draft report that's been prepared. We are all providing our comments to that report. There is one open item that was brought up at the last meeting by our auditor controller, Joe Harn. Mr. Harn believes it might be important to give our Board of Supervisors the ability to have more at-will employees in the county. There are very few in a county, and in Placer County, there's like 125 at-will employees. So Mr. Harn presented some numbers, and he is going to do some more research and bring some more numbers, and then the review committee will be listening to that and making a decision whether or not we will make a recommendation to the board to take some action, or whether it's something that we do not believe should be changed in the charter right now. After that, we probably, our September 12th meeting will be our last meeting. And we are scheduled to be in front of the Board of Supervisors on Tuesday, September 19th, around 2:30 in the afternoon, to give our full report, and then also to answer any questions that the Board of Supervisors might have.
Excellent. Nice synopsis. Appreciate that. Let's move on to healthy communities. Do you have anything to add, Kathy?
Actually, I have two items to report. One is I did not address the mobile unit that you had suggested at the beginning of the presentation. And one of the objectives with our community hubs is to align mobile services. First Five actually built a mobile dental van back in 2008, 2009 that's been traveling around to our schools and our libraries in order to provide services for oral health services for families who don't have that. And since that time, and especially through COVID, we'll be bringing on, as I understand it, 3 more mobile services. There's going to be a mobile immunization service that is coming through County Health and Human Services. There will be a mobile medical unit that's coming through El Dorado Community Health Center. And then I understand behavioral health will have a mobile mental health unit that's coming out in the spring. And so we are talking about how to create a memorandum of understanding so that these they're placed correctly, so that there's an order in the community. Like if they're parking at the library, they know when they're going to park there and who's coming in and what time they're going to come in. And that's also an extension of the hubs as well, so that then we can bring the services, even if they can't have an office space at the hubs, we can bring the mobile services in and expand our healthcare access at the same time. So that MOU is in its beginning stages, and we'll be working on getting that together in the next month and a half. And then the second thing that I thought I would share is that I'm very excited to share that I am taking on the Commission for Youth and Families. The El Dorado County Office of Education was named the administrative unit as part of the Youth and Families Commission. This commission was actually unique in the state, in that El Dorado County decided that making sure that our outcomes for kids were important enough that the CAO, together with the board, created a new commission in order to make sure across the lifespan kids have healthy outcomes. Basically, education disruptions, you know, if they go to probation, if they're in special ed, are we making sure that everybody's talking together so that the kids get a successful outcome? So this commission, I'm excited about being part of it. We're currently recruiting a program coordinator, so if you know anybody, send them my way. And I'll read to you: the commission aims to coordinate an integrated, transparent, data-driven system of services so that all young people have access to social, emotional, educational, and health services they need. They will encourage El Dorado's public, nonprofit, private agencies to work together to establish an integrated, transparent, and data-driven system that the burden of navigation across partners is on the system itself rather than on young people and families. So excited to be working with that commission as well. That's it.
Okay. Let's go to our APAC report.
APAC. Well, Tim, Bob, and I are here in this room tonight. We'll be here on this room on Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. In all likelihood, we'll also be in this room tomorrow night because we have a scoping meeting for the Town and Country Village El Dorado. And so those project applicants for Town and Country Village El Dorado, they're having a public scoping meeting here as part of the secret process tomorrow night, 6 p.m. in person. There'll be exhibits. You can talk to everybody, fill out comment cards. And then they're having a virtual scoping meeting the next day via Zoom at 11 a.m. You get 2 chances to talk to them and submit comments there. And then they're going to come and talk to us Wednesday evening to just describe what they've seen from their scoping meetings and the process that they've gone through to this point. This is an applicant that's done a tremendous amount of outreach since 2019. They've been to APAC probably this is like the 7th time. But there's always good information to share. There are always, their initial discussions with us were like, this is what we're thinking about. What would the community like? And so that's rare that we get that. So if you have an opportunity to attend this scoping meeting in person tomorrow night here or virtually, or if you want to come to our meeting on Wednesday night, you have 3 chances there for that project.
Just mention it's at the intersection of Bass Lake Road and Highway 50 it's on the east side of that intersection. So if you're not familiar with.
So, and I'll describe it briefly. We'll talk about it 3 more times this week, but it's north of the highway. It's north of the old Country Club Drive, which was moved 1,700 feet north.
Yep.
So they have 2 hotels proposed with a shared event center, a museum, some restaurants. There'll be some aspect for some retail mixed use that's not defined fully yet. But on the north side of Country Club, north of that project site, they're proposing 112 cottages. Out of the 112, half of them, 56, are proposed for rentals for their staff, for employees that will be working at those facilities. The other 56 will be available for use through the hotel systems there. So it's a novel use of the land. A lot of people are saying, well, why would you do that there? And why is it doing? It's a very high-end product they're looking at doing. They're also having a museum for the gold rush history through El Dorado County. They're looking to preserve aspects of things that are on those properties. There's a wagon trail from the gold rush days that cuts through the property, and they're looking to make that an inclusive type of usage while preserving it and connecting to other trails in the area. So they're very, another unique aspect with this project is that the developer lives here, or their kids went to Oak Ridge High School. It's not somebody from Los Angeles or Utah or New York that's trying to build a project. It's somebody that's pretty familiar with us here. Like I said, they've done a lot of outreach, and I think we appreciate the amount of dialogue we've had with them. So why at that corner? Well, it's part of the Bass Lake Hills specific plan. Technically, it's zone R10 and R5, you could have pretty big sort of ranch estate type of properties there. So when we look at it, we also have to consider, okay, we'll consider all the things, traffic, environmental, everything, but what else could be built there? They're in that specific plan. They can come back and say, yeah, we want to build 900 houses. Well, do we want that? Is that a better use for that property? We don't know. We'll look at it and we'll provide our feedback through the draft environmental review, the final, and when it gets to the Planning Commission Board of Supervisors. So, but it's a unique project. It's different for not just El Dorado County. I think it's different in the region. So the other item we'll be talking about will be representatives from PAC West. They had proposed using, they developed where the Tractor Supply store is south of Highway 50 along Latrobe. At one time, they had proposed having a mixed-use development there with about 900 high-density, mostly multifamily type of units. That project kind of went away for a little while. Earlier this year, we had seen an application go in where they talked about they wanted to try to do a couple of mixed-use retail type things, 2 drive-throughs, another building, probably another food service type building, retail of some sort. They pulled that application because in discussions with the county, they discovered that, well, that's a permitted use of the R&D zoning. They could do that. So they pulled that pre-app back. We have a formal application coming in, but they also have 2 buildings that are part of the business park system that, again, it's a permitted use, and that they're pretty much all the way through getting their entitlements for this 2 new buildings. It's part of the business park. So they're going to talk about that. They're talking about maybe how they can approach it. They're calling it Gateway El Dorado for the mixed use sort of features. And we also talked to them last week in a Zoom call about, they also have an application in to do a parcel split for the rest of the property north of that. And we had some concerns because at the time we were all struggling with Project Frontier, this application came in for the parcel splits, and it's identified as storage and distribution. And, I'm trying to remember the incubator was another project. That's the other, yeah. So anyways, it was like sort of consistent with what we were seeing for Project Frontier. And we thought, well, okay, are we going to see a land rush for this? Or because again, it's like 3,000 plus trips a day. But there's no project, it's a parcel split. So we're trying to get information. They'll be here to talk about it. So it's dynamic and fascinating. I know you'll all want to be here for that. But, and then we'll have some updates on some area projects that are in process that we're not doing any additional analysis on right now, just to let you know where they're at. We submitted comment letters for a couple of TAC meetings for Costco EDH 52. And in that, and Johnny mentioned that in his supervisor comments, that it's a bit different now. They're talking about a multifamily project where they had proposed residential, retail and commercial, and there'll still be the buildings there proposed for that, but they're talking about 300 plus apartment units there. So we had a scoping meeting for that a year ago, 2 years ago, 2 years ago. We thought it changed enough for that part of the project. Costco's still Costco. This other use has changed it. We thought it would probably be advisable at least to have another scoping meeting to address the changes they've discussed. So that was in our TAC meeting comments. What's our other TAC meeting? The Montana, El Dorado, they had phase 2 was approved in 2021. We had very good dialogue with the developer. He was very engaged with us, several APAC meetings, met with community members there. But that project is not financially viable at this time. There's no hotel anymore. There's no grocer. Office and retail, the market's very difficult right now. So he's proposing to switch it to a 330 unit multifamily and attach it to the Montana development. It's already there with Relish Burger and the other item, where Sienna's at now, where all those buildings and uses that are there. And again, it's a different look. We're hoping, we submitted our comments on that. It's a pre-application. He's just going to see what he gets in terms of feedback for what he's proposed, and then we'll see if he wants to proceed with it. But he was very engaged with us as well. So we'll talk about those items, and there'll be a couple other things that we have that come in. We're just going to update the community on where those projects are at and where they stand right now. So if you're not doing anything Wednesday night, you could be here in this room. We'll save these seats. Put your names on them right now. And then, or, you know, you can do it virtually through Zoom like this. We'll also stream the meeting through YouTube, but you can't comment through YouTube. But, and as I wrap up, because too much of me, I want to point out that the fire department makes this room available for the community council and make this room available for APAC. We're also doing a scoping meeting here. That's just a commitment to the community. I just want to, you know, we don't say thank you enough, but, you know, I just want to point that out, that these tools that we use with Zoom, you know, we were doing this on our own when we were trying to do it through when we were at the CSD, and, you know, we appreciated what they did for us as well, but the fire department is just a good community partner, and I think we all need to recognize that, so. I'm done.
Kathy had a question or a comment, I think, so.
I want to build on what Dr. Fortune brought up earlier, and just all of a sudden occurred to me. When we're doing residential, is there any point where we stop and go, hey, is there enough childcare? I mean, should we be thinking about that as a planning group, and we stop and ask the question before we do residential?
We can ask that, and we ask questions like that. We ask about the school districts a lot, and the school districts don't typically respond. They will go, okay, there's a fee, there's a per pupil fee, we're good. And I'm being honest, and I you know, that's their job, is to educate, and they got to go get those dollars. We had the superintendent from the high school district come and talk to us right before COVID, and, you know, he's saying point blank, hey, enrollment's declining overall for the entire district. He pointed out that Oak Ridge, which actually started declining, I think it was 3 years ago, almost 4 years, 3 years ago, so like another year and a half, saying that Oak Ridge is going to start declining. I've talked to the principal at Oak Ridge. He goes, our enrollment's not declining. So they have consultants that are saying that's what it's going to be.
For the next 14 years is what I was told by Ron Cruz just this weekend.
Yes.
Really?
I looked at the birth projections for El Dorado County, and we're going up in birth projections. So.
Well, yeah, and, you know, but
Just saying.
I think part of that calculus before COVID was that we were building a lot of senior housing. And, you know, that the properties down there are technically Latrobe School District, most of it. There's parts of it, large parts are Blackstone, but so yeah, that's a question we ask. We ask, where's the water coming from? Well, the EID says there's water. You know, they have it penciled out that there's abundant water. We can do these things. School district says there's no problem. But services like childcare, there's nobody who can answer that, because they're all typically.
I'll get you somebody who can answer that.
You'd be my superstar if you do that.
Okay.
Because it's a valid question. You know,
you actually have a board-appointed local childcare planning council, and they keep the data on what's happening in childcare, and I'm sure that their council coordinator could come and tell you or answer that question by email.
We might have to have a special meeting with just talk about that. I would enjoy that. I think it'd be
I'll make
beneficial.
sure you get the connection. That'd be
Right.
amazing.
Because it was beneficial when Dr. Cruz came and talked to us. I mean, we got the perspective of what that organization's looking at. I don't know if that's the perspective of the teachers in the schools. You know, we have a lot of discussions about why Union Mine High School was built where it was built. Well, they own the property for 25 years, and they're going to build a high school there. So.
I am confident that Elizabeth Blakemore would come and talk to you about the childcare piece of it, so I'll make sure you get that connection.
That's awesome. That'd be awesome. I would look forward to having a discussion to inform people, to let people know.
That'd be beautiful. Thank you.
And then maybe provide some support as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that'd be
Yep.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good collaboration. I like this. This is getting better.
We're
Making it
fixing
happen.
everything right here, right now.
Happen.
In real time, yeah.
Did you have?
Margaret, you have some questions?
Yes, I just wanted to ask for the time on the Wednesday night meeting.
Wednesday night meeting, we start at 6:30 here in the room. If you want to do it on Zoom, it starts, you know, you just log in and it goes. And like I said, we also stream it to YouTube as well.
Tuesday night meeting on Zoom too?
No, I don't think it is.
So.
It'll be a little different. Here, there'll be exhibits. You can talk to the applicants, and you can talk to their consultants. County planners will be here as well. You know, we did virtual for the scoping meeting for Costco, and I don't think that served anyone very well. I don't think it served the applicant very well. I know it didn't serve the community very well, but that was the time, and that's what we had available. So, yeah, if you want to make comments, like I said, any comment you put in will get answered. It might not be, if it's not environmental in nature, when the EIR comes back from the final it, and they'll say, well, we received these comments and here's our answer. That is not related to environmental, but we'll pass your, you know, and share your concerns with the decision makers. So if you ask a question, you get some answer.
Thank you.
On Tuesday, I think it's 11 a.m. I'm pretty sure it's 11 a.m. The details are on the APAC website. It's linked right in it's the leading story at the top. Wednesday, yeah, the Wednesday morning. And then, yeah, Zoom is Wednesday. Tuesday is here at 6.
Thank you.
All right. It's too much of me.
All right, okay, well, let's move on. And today was Lauren's first day of school, back at school, I believe, right? So she's gonna give us the youth report, and I'm sure it was a busy day, right?
Yeah.
Always is.
Yeah, so Oak Ridge had their first day of school today, so, I think there's not too much to share since it was the first day, but I think, especially in ASB, there's been a lot of conversation specifically about kind of where we want to go with the flow of the year and kind of what we want to focus on as a school. And so I think kind of the main thing was kind of trying to create engaging activities to create a positive environment on campus. And so definitely we are loading up the year and the schedule with a lot of really engaging activities for the high school students. Kind of on top of that and like continuing with that, we were also focusing a lot on helping the freshmen transition into their first year of high school. Our link crew has been doing a lot of training as well as just connecting with their students a lot. And this year, in comparison to the past years, link crew is kind of going to be a continuous sort of activity that they're going to be connecting with their students the entire year to kind of give them that sort of ease of transition and also that mentorship and guidance, kind of similarly to what I've been talking about with the peer advocacy program a lot. And so I think specifically at Oak Ridge, we're going to be meshing that a lot. And maybe instead of providing the mentors, we're going to be providing the trainings to those link crew leaders, kind of just trying to be innovative and creative with the systems that are already in place. And then kind of on top of that, it kind of came to my attention that we kind of also need to be connecting with the parents more. I kind of found out that there's a Facebook page on social media that's specifically class of 2024 senior parents. And so I think it's so important that not only do we connect with students, but we also connect with parents, a lot of whom have the first time ever that they're having a senior or the first time that they've ever had a kid through Oak Ridge. And so I've kind of been able to connect with the people that have been running that Facebook page and consequently have been getting lots of questions and been able to answer a lot of questions about activities going on at school. And so I think that's also going to be a priority for this year, not only being able to educate and make students aware of activities on campus, but also their parents as well. And then on Youth Commission activities, pretty straightforward. We're going to be going over applications for our new commission, I think in the next couple of weeks. And I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but it's kind of a complicated process because we have to sort of rebuild our commission every single year because we lose almost half of it to graduating seniors. And so we've kind of adjusted our timeline this year. And so hopefully, fingers crossed, we're able to finish up our application process a little bit sooner. And we should have about 6 weeks of extra time to deal with commission activities.
Very good, good
Lauren,
start.
did you go to senior sunrise this morning?
Senior sunrise this morning. So I've been up since 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And daily breakfast is served right on the campus? No. Yeah, very well done. Okay, let's move on to community information and outreach.
Okay, been wrapping up a little bit today, or for this year. For every Sunday, the farmers market is still continuing at El Dorado Hills Town Center. It's every Sunday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. And the Live on the Boulevard concerts continue for every Thursday through September 7th. And that's from 7 to 9 at the El Dorado Hills Town Center. On August 11th, the El Dorado Hills CSD is going to have their summer concert, and that's from 7 to 9:30 at the CSD Community Park. On August 12th, it's that annual Meet the Trojans with all the Oak Ridge High School football players and cheerleaders. It's a great, fun community event where the kids come out and meet all the players and the cheerleaders out there. That's from 4 to 7 p.m. at the Town Center. And then on September 9th is I think it's the 3rd annual El Dorado Hills Brew Fest put on by the Chamber. And that it will be from 3 to 7 p.m. at the Village Green Brenna. Oh, and I also wanted to say during Kathy's presentation, she had talked about the different, like the free food calendars and links to hubs. We have all of those links to the new calendars and all the hub, all that information's on Supervisor Heidal's website on the county page. So all that information, you can just click one link and you'll have all that information. So along with Kathy's presentation.
When we write the minutes, we'll put that link in there
Yeah.
for them so they'll be able to click and get
Yeah.
to it, and then you can keep it as a special place or whatever. So, yeah, bookmark it, whatever.
There is a lot of free food distribution throughout the county. And
Right.
Nice large calendar for that.
I think we're very fortunate in that regard, but there's always islands that don't get served that we have to look at. How do we address that? So, very good. Bob, our District 2
Yes.
part of the report.
Well, I think that John Davy, I covered most of the things that we'd be concerned with in District 2, primarily with all the development that take down. Walking in the door, Supervisor Heidel was kind enough to give me a package that Supervisor Turnbull had put together. He had met with Karen Gardner, speaking about a number of things that we're going to be addressing with the APAC, specifically the R&D, Carson Creek R&D project, which basically is the distribution activities, also the self-service storage facility, and also the cell towers. So we have more information. And as soon as I get to a scanner, I'll get it to you, Tim, and you, John, and the other officers, so we can talk about it on Thursday. The last thing is that Supervisor Turnbull did express his regrets that he couldn't join us today. But he was meeting with some members of the congressional staff that are here in town from Washington to visit Grizzly Flats, and we're hoping that something very positive will come out of that. But that's basically my discussion today, John. Thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you all. Any go backs by anybody? All right, seeing none, I'll just announce that our next meeting is Monday, September the 11th. And I think we're going to be able to present our strategic plan review before the total public review, but that's good to get started early. If not, we'll look if there's a guest speaker that makes sense to bring in next month. We'll get that finalized here pretty quickly as things get to maturity dates and we can say, yeah, we're on track or not. So with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting, and I think we're a little earlier than normal, a little after 6:30. So thank you all.
I know.
This was good. I think 102 degrees kind of helps the environment. I don't know.